the company that publishes Dr Seuss books announced that they were no longer going to be publishing 6 particular books because of racist or offensive imagery, which is entirely within their right to do. Maybe they've just said, look, we don't want to publish these anymore given the environment that we're in now. And what I thought was now, and again, that's entirely up to them to do, they're within their rights to do that, but I was more fascinated by the response. So immediately people went down, 2 different sort of lines of argument. One being, yes, this was a really good thing to do because, these books are out of date. They were written at a time when, these sort of things were acceptable, and now they're not. So we shouldn't be giving kids access to these things, etc., etc., etc. And then there's the other side that's claiming cancel culture, and going absolutely nuts. And I have to say, blowing it completely out of proportion, given that when I looked at it a bit more closely, I can't even remember these particular titles. I don't think they're at the sort of like the top of the list of his most famous entries, perhaps.
Look, this is really probably a slightly Dr Seuss way of looking at the internet, and the people on it. Look, I'm sure both sides have got a point, but you never see anybody contribute to these discussions saying, I don't really understand what this is about. I'd like to learn more. People just take a side and then pile on. Who knows? Maybe the reason that they've pulled these 6 books is because they didn't sell anyway. If you can't see the offensive material in Dr Seuss, is it because you've been brainwashed, or is it because it was never there? It is part of our internet culture. I don't necessarily think it's a cancel culture mentality. I just think that it's a polarizing sort of mentality, and for I'll say this, that the more trivial the instance, not the cause, but the more trivial the instance, such as something that's highly subjective in a book that's been around 50 years, and I do think it's a trivial instance, that the greater the fight, because there's really nothing at stake. And I think that's what's happening here.
Well, I mean, I think that's what concerns me about society right now, is that there's the almost eradication of rational kind of discussion and thinking about anything. You can't have we're trying to have that discussion right now, as we do each week, about things, and I'm sure that even if we got into a full-blown argument about a topic, we probably have the ability to listen to each other's side to try and understand everything more, to try and get to not a consensus, but maybe an understanding or whatever. But the fact that so many people are just so quick to go straight to a side without thinking just doesn't, I guess, bode well for the future,
of society.
if it's gonna go down that route.
Well, precisely. And what I mean in this particular instance is nobody is going to take the time to write a 10-page, well-thought-out reason as to why that's offensive. They're just going to point and scream. And then the other side just points and starts screaming as well.
Yeah.
And if that's meant to be any level of culture or thoughtfulness or communication or, understanding, no, it just simply doesn't. And whichever side you're on, I just can't see either of your points.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess maybe in the future we might end up calling ourselves SciTech Outrage, perhaps, instead of SciTech Culture.
We have to run around screaming at everything then.
Yeah.